Hello, I'm Jonathan Bowman-Perks and welcome back to my favourite time of the week. And I am delighted to have my mentor, Alex Chisnall. And Alex is set up his own business. He's an entrepreneur by nature, and his podcast and the podcast he teaches people are all around entrepreneurship. And he has a business called Screw It, Just Do It, and a great background with Virgin, which we're going to hear about in the second half, in the Inspired Leadership Extra part for the podcast. But Alex, welcome. Great to have you back, and to be on each other's podcasts. Just tell us a bit now, in a short moment, of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so right now I am helping leading brands and entrepreneurs essentially find their own voice through the power of podcasting, by having their own podcasts, through marketing, through the audio channels, to educate their existing customers and attract more like-minded listeners that will then go on to become paying customers for those brands and entrepreneurs. So that's my main focus, and I teach other entrepreneurs to put their own podcast together themselves if they don't fit into that niche.
And thinking about leadership, which is the topic of this series, Inspiring Leadership, who have you found you've worked for or with who were quite inspiring to you and have shaped the leader you are today?
Yeah, well, I left. I literally went from university to the BBC. It was like a trainee news journalist. I left there to see the world with Virgin Atlantic. So it's probably no great stretch to say that Sir Richard Branson was probably the biggest influence, and he essentially inspired me to eventually leave Virgin Atlantic and set up my own business, because I just found I had this itch to scratch. And I just couldn't put it off.
Did you see him much? Or
yeah, it's funny when you look back, and hindsight is the wonderful thing it is. But we used to see a lot of him back in like 90s, early noughties. Literally be flying out on the aeroplane, staying over. I've had many a party from LA to South Africa with Richard, and it's only now that I look back and I think, I wish I'd asked him more. When I look back and think, he was actually younger than me, and he had an airline and a record company, but there I was partying in a room instead and doing, I don't know, vodka shots with Richard Branson, instead of actually asking him questions about how he built $1 billion business. But
how old is he now?
I think he's either just turned 70 or is coming up to 70. I'm sure it's like 69 or 70. And at the time I look back, I was like, mid-20s, and you just think, well, I was just enjoying myself and not thinking about starting a business in any way, shape or form. So
okay, that's good. So there's him. And who else has inspired you, and what were their qualities?
I would say, having chatted to you earlier for my podcast, and I would say my mother, funnily enough, because she went from separating with my father, and I was 10, 11 at that time, and her bringing up two boys on her own, moving them from England to Cardiff in Wales, and I got pretty unruly. When you kind of, again, you look back and you trace behaviour, and you're like, well, kind of no surprise really. I lost that kind of father figure, and I can remember that conversation with him that he said, I'm moving back to Canada, because he was Canadian, had moved from Canada to the UK, but I can specifically remember that moment. And I thought she was uber strict, especially when I look how I am with my kids now, and you think, well, she actually needed to be, but very disciplined, but very clear in what she wanted us to do.
How many brothers and sisters?
So one brother, so two of us. Yeah. But I was the kind of.
But what were mum's qualities? What were mum's qualities that you admire? Apart from being strict.
The ability to be able to talk to absolutely anybody, whether that was the Queen or some little old lady in the street that she'd never met before, and to see her now, and she never remarried, never had another relationship until about 7 or 8 years ago, funnily enough, like when she was well into her 70s, in her late 60s, early 70s. But she specifically did that, for the sake of bringing us up. And in hindsight, of course, me and my brother are like, we wish you had. See her now to go into a room and just walk up to somebody. The art of networking, really, to walk up to somebody and literally go, "Hi, I'm Sandra. How are you? What do you do?"
That's brilliant.
And you think so many people you go to events who and I'm guilty as the next person, just to stand and thinking, I don't know anybody here. What do I do? And people think I'm really confident, but if I don't know anybody, I'm a different animal.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great gift to have for any leader, to be able to speak to absolutely anybody.
Yeah. Very good. And then thinking about from those two people who inspired you, we as leaders, we often make some pretty big howlers and blunders, and good leaders can learn from their mistakes, and only the strong can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Well, what about your mistake or mistakes, habits that you had in the past that you've changed, which has shaped you as a leader?
I think not listening.
Sorry?
or just listening to my own voice, and not actually thinking specific examples of me trying to do absolutely everything. Here is the manifesto, let you guys go and deliver it, and when things aren't working, just go, we'll do them twice as hard, twice as fast, but instead of actually asking their opinions on why this particular strategy wasn't working, why you thought it might not be working, what could you suggest that we might be able to do differently? And I've definitely taken that on board in the current business with the media agency, the podcast agency, and literally, and I think I've noticed that because people within my organisation are actually making suggestions without me asking for them. Yeah. So that to me is quite a clear sign that they feel comfortable. Yeah. To put ideas into the space, and they're suggesting how we can improve the business. So why shouldn't I? I'd be stupid not to listen.
Yeah, very much so.
And I always remember, this was Richard Branson. He would, when he was on board the aircraft, he would have, like, completely old school. Said he couldn't even send an email. He had notepad and pen, and he would spend like a 7-hour flight to New York walking around the aircraft, asking people questions on what he thought they could improve in the airline. And I thought, he could just sit in upper class with his feet up for 7 hours, watching movies, catching up on his sleep, working on his businesses. But no, he decided, and yes, there's
talking to the passengers,
and not just passengers in upper class. He'd be down in economy, in premium economy, chatting to everybody. And I noticed, that is one of the things I did notice at that age, him doing that, because other people in the crew be going, what's he doing that for? He could be, getting asleep in an upper class bed. And I thought, part of it has got to be PR, because he is the world's expert in PR. But he was listening.
Yeah, no, he was listening. I do admire him. He is one of the people I respect. Finally, what would be your short top tip to people to be better leaders?
Top tip on how people can become better leaders. I think it's passing on the lesson that I've just learned myself, really, to not be afraid to ask people their opinion. Yeah. And completely related to that is to listen. For me, that seeing Richard Branson, remembering back my, one abiding memory is him, asking questions. And I think the better the questions you ask, the better your answers are going to be.
Brilliant. Alex, thank you. It's a great pleasure
having me on
the
Appreciate
podcast.
it.
And congratulations and good luck with all you do.
Thank you.